Welcome back to the RSA Conference 2021, live from Virtual Broadcast Alley. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian. Joining me for this segment is Mario Vuksan, the CEO and co-founder of ReversingLabs. The topic today is Malware Labs, the key to the next generation of threat hunting. You can, of course, find out more by visiting securityweekly.com/ReversingLabs. Mario, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, nice to chat with you again. I've been looking over some of the notes, and I'm told in good RSA fashion that you have a new solution that you're announcing called ReversingLabs Malware Lab Solution. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So we are announcing really an integrated solution that would include, many different parts, of ReversingLabs platform, and with a singular goal of helping organizations avoid the need to build out too many components, of their own, or integrate too many sort of specialized, sometimes even open source or even commercial solution into something that, ends up taking a lot of time to maintain, stand up, and something that actually, frankly, keeps SOCs and analysts, away from doing, what they need to do. At the same time, we want this solution to help them be ready to analyze whatever things, come their way, especially in this sort of modern times when we are still very much focused on malware, phishing attacks, etc., but are increasingly focused on the activities of a handful of APT actors, supply chain vulnerabilities, and the such.
Yeah, it seems like, Mario, we're just inundated with threat feeds and technical write-ups of, hey, this is how this malware group operates, and here's how their tools and tactics and techniques, here's how they work, and there's a million articles, and you could spend a lot of time aggregating this data, researching this data. What I like about ReversingLabs is you folks have a great history behind having one-stop shopping for like a really great source for that information. It sounds like that's coming together in this new solution.
Yes, I'd probably say that, there are really obviously a lot of great companies with lots of, great research, and one can spend, entire day, every day, or maybe even longer, just, keeping up, with, what's happening in the market. What we really see is that, we almost have to get back to the square zero. Why do we have intelligence programs, both threat intel and, IR inside of the organization? What is their sort of mission? And what we would like our teams to do. So we all have built expensive infrastructure that provide visibility. Maybe we haven't done so well on the enrichment, but the point of sort of deploying different control mechanisms, sort of security solutions that provide protection different levels, was not just to set and forget it. We've learned a long time ago that it doesn't work. And so with the consumption of, logs, alerts, pushing things into SIM-like databases, we have realized that, it is really critical to be able to audit and, control and further analyze those alerts that come from different products. Now, since they're usually, one truth, coming our way, properly enriching the content, providing secondary analysis and validation of that data, and then obviously providing some level of historic storage on the data through data lakes, or for files, through sort of the storage cabinets for malicious content, something you don't want in your environment anywhere anyway, really provides that the final validation. Did our control mechanisms do the right job? Do we need to override them? Do we need to generate subsequent processes that either bump certain users from the network, or modify firewall rules, or provide some other kind of the activity. And so this is something that we don't see enough organizations doing. Given that it's a really rather new space. There are many different tools, both commercial and open source, that organizations need to put together. And so what we see is organizations spending a lot of time in building rather than using.
Right.
And whenever analyst needs to spend time on IT tasks or maintenance tasks, it is really risky for organizations should they leave. But they're really not doing what they should be doing, and that's the analysis of those exceptional events that need human validation.
So it sounds like Malware Labs is taking that, enriching that data for me, and having me spend less time making that actionable for my environment, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to take an action. It's one thing to get an alert and go like, hey, this malware is doing XYZ. It's like, okay, great. Let me go spend a half a day or a day and go see if I have that in my environment. I want to cut right to this is the action you need to take.
Absolutely. And so the key here is to really provide something that's commercially supported, that's integrated into everything that you need. So easy access to data, whether it's from the network, email, storage, or if it's what's really popular these days, if it's some kind of a supply chain application. I want to give you something very, very large. I really don't want to be spending hours of cutting and preparing the data for some analysis. It just needs to go. But also the analysis really needs to have the best possible tooling. Historically, security industry was built on a lot of sort of open source projects, and as it happens, open source has a really bad history of being supported over longer periods of time, especially if the tools are of a highly specific nature. So getting the best possible parsers, extractors, validators is not trivial. And so if you see some of the larger teams that have pursued sort of build their own infrastructure, hundreds of components, and sort of becomes a massive task to just get them to actual working state before you even start thinking about what data I'm extracting, how am I doing the hunting, what references can I put against it, and even more importantly, how do I generate this data into something that will alert me when something changes and the data needs to be reanalyzed. So type of the questions that auditors and regulators ask of teams traditionally.
So how do I utilize Malware Labs? What are the integration points that I have to get this nicely enriched data and make it actionable in my environment? ReversingLabs team provides multiple easy to configure connectors. So whether that's to other security solutions or to standard interfaces for consuming web or email content or simply mount points for different storage points you name it, S3, SMB, NFS. So it's a very easy way to get data, be it IOCs or actual files, for analysis. And that's sort of the beauty is that there is a sort of one centralized workflow to provide the best of the breed advanced static analysis on content, combined with dynamic analysis and enrichment of the network indicators for all sorts of different automation needs, but more importantly, to provide something for that sort of multi-stage tiering triage system. And then of course once we get to actually somebody that needs to spend time on an event, the idea is to have already collected data, ruled out false positives, provided multiple levels of analysis, and then integrated sort of advanced methodologies, sort of advanced searches through anything the organization is seeing locally, plus anything that ReversingLabs globally has collected. And I should mention here that ReversingLabs has the sort of globally largest repository of especially file-based threat reputation data, so that hybrid searching mechanisms become super interesting. And then of course one can superimpose that with custom search mechanisms using Yara on a sort of historic basis, historic collections either that are being held by ReversingLabs in our cloud
or that organization has collected locally within that integrated ReversingLabs solution.
So it sounds like I can have any number of different solutions to, for example, collect logs and use the ReversingLabs Malware Lab solution to help me discover what might have happened in my environment, even in an early stage of an attack. Correct.
Correct. So you run into a URL. We will grab the content from URL, and then based on sort of your policy or what should happen next. We may decide whether something needs to be detonated. Of course, since historically ReversingLabs has been providing phenomenal static analysis technology, we do analyze all the payloads really rapidly. All the way up to providing functional similarity to other known, components, to providing static behaviors or indicators of malicious intent, without needing to launch the application, so that analysts can really decide at what point, when and how something may need to be dynamically detonated. And this sort of, integrated automation with sort of, other kind of aspects of threat hunting is something that usually takes, a long time, to pick and put together.
Yeah. Time is of the essence now, too, especially when we think of ransomware, for example, that I want to find the attack in the earliest stage as I can. And I might not be able to prevent it, right? Because we all know you can't prevent 100% of what's coming at you.
Correct.
But if I have this nice set of data that's coming at me that allows me to catch it in the early stages and do something about it, I feel like that's one of the gaps that we have today in cybersecurity. So we're not catching stuff early enough, right? We don't find out about it until we get a ransom note.
Right.
Way too
Also,
late.
there's a couple of aspects here. So, speaking of ransomware, so it could be something that your endpoint in either solution has well detected. So, but from a typical SOC process, that's also a very interesting thing. So, if something was actually blocked, it should start as an investigation point. Do we have other aspects of this attack or actors activity in our network that we should worry about, and the entire threat hunting process begins. So context and more data becomes absolutely essential, so that we could say, hey, somebody tried to attack us, things were blocked, we did the further inspection, we're good to go. Effectively, we organizations would expect that happens all the time, but in reality, it happens, very rarely. The second sort of, corollary to that is, well, we maybe have blocked it, but we didn't get a lot of information. We don't even know that we had a ransomware attack that was blocked. God forbid it was actually successful. And then, we didn't have, proper alert, but, a handful of, hints, what was happening. So in those cases, we definitely want to have as much data that's available, and rich data that could be stored and made available to those advanced analysts to be able to make sense of what's in front of them.
Yeah, I think that really helps with priority too, because as we've seen, there are different threat actors out there that are operating in different stages of the attack. And knowing that, hey, if you see this, that's an earlier stage, and it usually leads to this. It sounds like you can answer some of those questions for me. So, I may have 3 different early stage attacks that I'm dealing with, but that one usually leads to this really potent, ransomware. So I got to pay attention to that one. Is that kind of some of the questions I can answer?
Correct. And the point is really to connect, as many links, between the indicators. So, network activity to payloads that generate more payloads, that, you may want to be, you may want to be scanning the endpoint device, and, trying to make sense, of, all the encrypted data, what was encrypted, what was not encrypted, can be identified, the ransomware family based on the output, of their encryption, etc. There's a lot of sort of, interesting indicators or metadata that could be obtained, through using all sorts of other tools, but ReversingLabs, they, brings it all together under one commercially supported umbrella. Mind you, we do maintain and rewrite all the sort of different parsers and extractors for formats because we want to be that source that is always up to date for our users. And of course being up to date really means knowing that that we have provided the best possible analysis for our customers.
It sounds like it really benefits threat hunting as well, rather than the threat hunters trying to parse together 12 different feeds and sources of information. They can get a lot just from ReversingLabs and have a standard data set, right? Because you end up writing like a parser for this feed, a parser for this set of data, right? But when it comes in one, it's much easier.
Correct. I mean, just these simple things like a lot of threat hunters utilize YARA rules, and then they start writing the patterns for different file formats, and they definitely do not have time to do the proper testing on whether those rules are right when they're loose and generate false positives, etc. A lot of these things, ReversingLabs, provides as a well thought out, well tested capabilities, that just provide, the metadata on which you can rely on, and then effectively after that, a user can, target, how YARA rules are written and can utilize ReversingLabs metadata along with, match regard results, from YARA hunting to provide that sort of, targeted threat hunting process, which we do not see anywhere else. We don't really see any other a solution that can marry in a search expression YARA rule match, with 500 plus different, the keywords that an advanced search through large volumes of data could require.
Do you provide the YARA rules in your feeds?
So ReversingLabs, has a lot of YARA rules, as a part of the product. We also have a really interesting open source collection of YARA rules, high quality YARA rules, no cost to users, and we've been sort of slowly updating them with new threats. And one thing we can say is that the community can definitely rely on those rules. They've been well tested. Utilizing our really massive repository of data, and are sort of very happy to see that the rules have been picked up for many different solutions today. But ReversingLabs has a lot more other content in addition of providing the tools for our customers to add their own custom YARA rules in many different ways. Adding, classification, sort of custom rules, custom tags to it, and allowing customers to apply these rules against, any extracted object, that, the payload may have embedded within, which in this time and in this, time, if you apply this, to something like, searching through supply chain, type of payloads where usually packages are at 1-5 gigs in size, then this kind of integrated capability becomes really essential to be able to provide a proper threat hunting capability.
How does it also affect the operations too, right? Because threat hunting, while it is part of operations, right, I find that the hunting piece is different from the defending and more proactive pieces. How can it help in the proactive sense? Does it integrate with my SOAR platform, in other words, to help that average everyday stuff just kind of give me some breathing room?
So absolutely. So all the major, we have integration with literally all the major, SOAR platforms, for kind of the, workflowing. We will, help organizations stitch it into whatever the workflow process, they have in their organization. But, when you were talking about, operations, you're talking about, teams that have, very wide purview over what's happening. They need to worry about networks. They need to worry about, custom applications that organization has built. They need to worry about email. They need to worry about the endpoint. Mention again. Now they have to worry about software that they're deploying, the patches that are being deployed, software the company is planning to buy in the future, the containers and VMs that are maybe going into the cloud. And obviously since the COVID, a lot of organizations have greatly improved, their mobile and web applications to all of a sudden start, taking a lot of rich content, from images, to media, from images, to documents. And all of that is sort of providing a very large operational burden that first needs to be sorted out, and data pulled out in a structured form and deposited into the database of your choice, be it Elastic, or Splunk, and ReversingLabs supports them and has sort of other abilities to integrate with whatever the repository of choice organization has.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've got lots of great hooks and integrations to help both operations and threat hunters make sense of the data they have to find what's important that needs attention.
Yeah, that's correct.
Mario, thank you so much for appearing on Security Weekly.
Oh, thank you so much, for inviting me, and looking forward to speaking with you again.
Outstanding. For those that want to learn more, especially about the new Malware Lab product from Reversing Labs, you can visit securityweekly.com/ReversingLabs.